whether it's a product innovation or marketing innovation or trend, in terms of three levels that are always true and always in operation at any time. And it's truths, trends, and trifles. So the truths never change. So in marketing, it's all about relationships. You have to present yourself well, so people eat with their eyes first. You've got to have a good story that was true 100 years ago. It'll be true in 100 years' time.
Welcome, builders, to How Would You Build It? The podcast that dives deep into the dynamic world of startups and product creation right here in South Africa and Africa. This show is more than just interviews. Every week, we sit down with the brilliant minds to provide a masterclass for building digital products amidst the challenges and opportunities unique to our continent. From seasoned founders to dynamic product managers, we uncover the unique stories and strategies behind some of the most innovative digital products being built. So for all the aspiring founders and product builders out there, you'll discover that each episode is a wealth of practical wisdom and local and actionable insights. Make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you listen to our podcasts and connect with us on social media for even more content. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome everybody to How Would You Build It? I've got a marketing and story making specialist, Dave Duarte, join me. Dave, thanks for joining. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bobby. It's great to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Not just the energy, but actually the conversation around, marketing, growth, storytelling, and growing communities. Because in all honesty, we can build businesses, we can build products, but if you're not telling people about it, if you're not getting the word out, then you're wasting your time, right? So distribution of these stories is absolutely important. But let's get stuck in. So you've got your own company. You've been doing this. You said to me 16 years of being a consultant marketing guru and like telling stories. So tell me, why is storytelling or story making so important in your eyes?
Bobby, it's fundamental. Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics, which is obviously his work has been hugely influential in user experience design, proved with his work that people don't respond to facts as much as they respond to stories. We're emotional decision makers. And so storytelling is about capturing people's attention in a way that's memorable and actionable, and particularly so that they can see themselves and their own life and business struggles in relation to your product. So it's in an overtraded economy, what we might call an attention economy. The storytellers are the ones that win the day. And, this works both at the scale of someone who's drop shipping a product that they found on TikTok to economic scale. Joseph Schiller wrote a book called Narrative Economics that showed essentially that economic memes shape the way that economies function at scale. So storytelling, I would say, is the one fundamental skill that everyone that wants to crack it in business needs to have. If you can't tell a story about how your product or service can make a difference, you're going to find it very difficult to get that first sale.
Yeah. You know what's amazing? So I was obviously doing a bit of research building up to our conversation today. And I actually, someone quoted that said that if you think about writing, if you think about text, if you think about photos and images, those are actually, in terms of human, have only been around for a short amount of time. But the way we talk to each other is primitive to how our brains have been wired. So as soon as we start telling someone a story, they can resonate with it a lot more. And that's just because of the way we've been wired, the way we've evolved as humans.
It's fundamental.
Yeah, exactly.
You see this coming through on TikTok and YouTube. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening to this spends an inordinate amount of time on YouTube Shorts, podcasts, of course, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and so on. And that's so often driven by people narrating incidents. But the reason I talk, and that is super important and a vital skill, but the reason I say storytelling and story making is because we've got to be aware that images and interfaces, products themselves, are an extension of the story that you're telling. They become artifacts of the story. So, for example, if I'm reading your website and it's riddled with spelling errors, the story that's coming through to me is that there's a low attention to detail over there. Or if so there's digital body language, and that's or each product has got a body language. Everything from 100%. Like, what do you prioritize in terms of the design? And that oftentimes stems from the story that you're trying to convey to the user based on what you see the primary use case for what you're doing is. So story making essentially Let me actually start by defining this, because for me, story making could be another word for marketing, and potentially a more useful word for people. When I was at varsity, the first thing that I learned about marketing was the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. Yeah, do you remember the 4 Ps? And they're actually so good, because we tend to think about marketing as the fourth P, promotion. And that's where we go, it's the arts and crafts department, like the engineers have built a product and then give it to, the arts and crafts department to make pretty and create ads and get it out there. But the essence of marketing should be that you've got a use case, you've got a problem to solve, and you bake that into the product itself. You bake in the price point for the user. Price itself is perception, because sometimes if something's too cheap, it's perceived as lower quality.
Correct. Yep.
For example, so narrative becomes a part of everything. So when we talk about story making, we go first and foremost, who's our customer? They're the hero. What are they struggling with? And then, if the customer is Luke Skywalker, our product is the lightsaber. Who are they going to defeat using this tool? Yes. And help them see themselves in the context of their journey. You're not going to save the galaxy without the lightsaber, Luke. So get that and then build that into the product. Use a metaphor that'll be relatable, and just do everything that you can to make it memorable. And the people that can do that today, Elon Musk wouldn't be Elon if the Tesla 3 wasn't sexy. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to build the narrative into the product.
Yeah. And I think just from everything you've said, something that stands out is actually, when you talk about these founders, you talk about these startups, you talk about these products that people are building, they're actually enabling stories. So if you think about Uber, I Ubered and I was able to go and do something. That whole experience was a story that they could tell because the tech enabled them to do something. So it's actually pegged in everything that we do. And I guess as a founder, you need to think about what story you're trying to make through your product, through your business, and make sure that gets translated.
100%. And a simple one line can actually shape the whole thing. And this is where I think great leaders use story. So Uber is such a great one, because Uber's become a story. So like if I launch something new, I'll kind of go, like, this is Uber for nurses. You open your phone, push a button, and a nurse comes to your home. It becomes a story. So how do we? But Uber started with a story, I'm sure. I mean, someone will know the actual pitch deck, but it was something like push a button, get a taxi.
Correct.
And I'm sure all of the prototypes were shaped by that story. Is this push a button, get a taxi? Because if it's not, if there's 3 steps, that ain't it. And that's the definitive story. I've mentioned Elon. I'm going to try and make this the last time, but it's the first civilization to inhabit Mars is one of those. I mean, I don't love that. I've got no love for that story, but it's very powerful and it's very compelling, and
people can resonate with it, and they love
resonate with it, and it inspires engineers who work for him. It's a talent driver. So stories don't have to be big and complex. It can be a line that you use to harmonize and organize a team.
Yeah. So when telling a story, something that is very, very clear. If anybody was to search, how do I tell a story? The first thing you need to understand is your audience, the people that you're telling the story to. Do you have any tips and tricks for, founders that are building their products on how to identify who their audience is that is listening, or maybe they don't know? How do they get to a point where they do start understanding their audience?
100%. So markets are conversations, and if you want to tap into a market, you've got to start having conversations. This is fundamental. This is a timeless truth of marketing, and it's luckily so much easier than people make it out to be. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to serve up some broccoli. It's not going to be tasty, but it's going to be good for you.
I love me some broccoli.
So you've got to make contact with people that are potentially in your market, and it might be a little bit hit or miss in the beginning, but you've got to sit them down and have conversations with them. And the method that I learned was from I think it was the lean startup machine, but the metaphor stuck for me, that it's like building a house, and I've used this for years. So find the right person, and you have a 3-phase conversation. It's who they are is the foundation. The walls are what is the nature of their problem. And then the roof is then you present your solution. And anything less than, oh my God, how do I get it now? response at the end for them is your pitch needs more work. But to add a little bit of nuance to that, sociologists have shown that you can start virtually anywhere in a network. On the periphery, if you imagine those social network maps, those dots with lines joined to each other, you can start virtually anywhere on a network, and you can ask people to refer one person who's more influential in the space. Who else would you recommend that I speak to that's influential? And within 2 or 3 hops, in most times, you can find yourself dead center at the most influential people in the network with a referral. So it could be 4, 5, or 6 hops, but the broccoli part of it is getting FaceTime with people. Zoom is obviously very helpful. So is getting together with people for actual meals, actual coffees. There's benefits to both, by the way. You can be more objective with Zoom, but you can grow relationships far more strongly if you can get them IRL. But that format is really helpful. And the key thing is, don't push your product. You've got to approach them with an authentic sense of curiosity and take notes, because people drop gems about their product that you can literally lift line for line, like to the point now where I don't do any copywriting for a campaign until I've sat down with people with this problem and really talk it through with them and sit with them as they struggle to make sense of what we're offering. And then they'll often come up with the metaphors that I need to take to market. Oh, you're saying it's like this.
So have you
crack it. So customer interviews, game changer.
That's amazing. Have you read the mom test?
No, what's the mom test?
Oh my gosh, you have to read the mom test.
Oh, it's an actual book?
It's an actual book.
And give me a summary. I'm looking now.
No, listen, dude. And for our listeners, it is a phenomenal book, and it's from Rob Fitzgerald, and he speaks about the same thing. So the mom test is actually about, if you wanted to tell your mom, I'm starting an app for fitness, she's going to be like, oh, my sweetheart, that is such a great idea. But is she going to use it? No. I think he uses recipes in the book as an example. Like, hey, I'm going to create an app. I'm going to create an app about recipes. But she's got recipe books. Why would she use that? But she will tell you that she loves the idea and that she would use it. But she's lying to you because she loves you. And that's why he gets the concept of the mom test. But in general, he's trying to say is like, figure out how to talk to them. Instead of saying, I'm starting a recipe app, say to them, how do you normally cook?
Yes.
Get to understand their behaviors, and that will tell you their story about where their pain points are is actually the way you direct it. So we use it in product. So when we want to interview our users, we don't tell them what we're building. We ask them about their lives. And it's interesting because you said this before we even clicked on record, is that there is this gap between building products and getting it to the people, yet we're actually one. We should be one team, because what we're building needs to talk about what they are needing in their lives. That's going to change them. And it seems to be missing a lot in the world. You agreed?
I think that there's an extremely strong case for marketers as CEOs. If only we knew how to do spreadsheets and marketing. I'm joking. We're good with data. We just need to be better at the money stuff, and then marketers can take over the world. But in all seriousness, I think that the marketing mindset is the thing that harmonizes everything. We shouldn't be doing product management outside of the context of these conversations. We shouldn't be doing adverts outside of the context of deep insights into the product and who's using it. And we need to create harmonization between those things. I freaking love the mom test, because I remember at Varsity, there was a guy who had a lead on cheap imports of shoes from China, and he came and he showed them to me and others, these shoes, and they were flipping decent shoes, and he asked if we would buy them for, I've forgotten what it was, called it $200 or $150 for the shoes. It's a pretty good deal. And he spoke to about 20 people, and everyone said yes. And so this dude was already, he's like 20,000 students, like 100% pirate. So he went and he invested whatever he had in these shoes, and he came to Varsity a couple of weeks later, and he was like, great, what's your size? And of course, the guy got hardly any sales, because I said, yes, I would buy them, but I don't have any money. I'm a broke student. Exactly. Would buy is very different from buying. And that was the thing. He should have understood the nature of my need, who I am, and then get better and better by the time you're doing the demo. And this only happens conversation 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Correct.
10. But can I get a pre-order in? And then
I think there's a whole chapter just on that exact same thing. When you actually ask someone to put money on the table, then you'll really get to understand how much of a problem it is for them. But again, I just want to say, Dave, like, do you have any kind of tips or tricks to find those right people? So I know you said that you got to kind of spread yourself, but how does someone go? Because if I think about some founders, or not everybody's just happy to be extroverted and say, hey, would you mind, going
Yeah.
for coffee? So is there some tips that have worked for you that maybe somebody could also use to help them get those first interviews to start understanding their audience?
Yeah, it's honestly is hard. That's why I said it's broccoli, because people try and take shortcuts like putting out surveys and that kind of thing, which you can promote online, but you don't get authentic responses in that case, and you miss
Mm,
out on a lot of the magic that comes in the unanticipated responses. I'm really intuitive with this. Like we've done this. I've been doing this for years and years and years. And it started with the first time I did it was at a workshop, and they literally sent us out in the streets,
oh,
and
really?
we had to go and like cold pitch strangers on
Oh,
streets where there was, I think
haunting.
it was I've forgotten the streets in Cape Town, but it's where Truth Coffee is. And there was a couple of coffee shops options. And I ended up just standing by the coffee shop and trying to, I'll get you a coffee if you'll chat with me. And honestly, at that stage, it's just looking, does this person look like
Mm,
age-wise? How are
yeah,
they
yeah.
dressing? Do they look like, and that wasn't too bad. I got some
Mm,
really good responses, and most of the time, so you can get it in the ballpark. And
mm,
the insight that I had about the sociology around a couple of steps to the network is you can actually start on the periphery of the network and get close enough, and the
mm,
close enough within
yes,
2 or 3 referrals
correct. Yeah.
you'll have the person. So what I would say that there's two big challenges. One is the threshold of the ask,
Yeah, yeah.
um, which is energetically quite difficult, especially if you're
Mm,
an introvert.
mm,
The second is the referral. And the third one, which makes both easier, is to set time aside for it. So the
mm.
optimal schedule at build and product design phase is one interview
Yeah,
every
yeah,
week, is
yeah,
what I
yeah,
would recommend.
yeah.
I mean, do you have anything with this?
No, so in the book, and I have used it since reading it, and it's fresh in my mind because I only finished it like end of last year. But he also talks about don't be so stressed about making those cold pitches or whatever it is. And I love because he doesn't really talk about the referral as much as you're saying. He does bring it up,
Mm.
but but the thing is, like your friends, your families, the people that you're speaking to already, don't tell them what you're building, but start
Yes.
asking them about their lives. And I think the key then, what you're kind of bringing here is like, okay, while you're having those conversations to the people that you're already talking to, throw in the referral, throw in a
I
question that
like
says,
that.
hey,
Ah, that's great. You've given me a nuance, because we've always been on the strangers level. So, by the way, I mean, this stuff is, I mean, just to tell you how serious I am about this, I mean, we start every project like this. We
mm,
call it stakeholder mapping. Like we literally sit on
yeah,
social media and we research people in the
mm.
demographic, and we build a list, and then we start DMing, calling, and we can find details, emailing, and we set up these meetings.
Oh wow. Okay. So I mean that's prospecting, right? Like I mean it's kind of
Yeah.
looking at potential people to talk to. So my question then is, I mean you say you've been doing this for like 16 odd years. You've been building stories for people, making stories for people. How do you measure it? How do you measure that the stories you're telling is working for the client or for the business or the project? Is there a way that you do that?
Yeah, look, I'm going to be a bit obvious.com here, but like obviously growing sales is the number one metric. Um,
Yeah.
but I want to put a huge caveat there that there is no single metric, and it's a huge danger in the startup space that people overinvest in performance marketing, which is just driving sales, and you're not investing in brand, not investing in perception. So there's a combination of hard and soft metrics that tell you about it. And one of it, I guess, would be some form of mom test, which is
Mm,
when you speak to people, how enthusiastic are they about what you're doing?
mm,
So I'm a big fan of reach, but then how many people are you reaching with it? What's the pass along? What's the view rate? But that doesn't always convert into
mm,
sales. So then you've got to
correct.
look, you've got to combine that, you've got to narrow it up by
Mm,
geography,
mm,
frequency, how many times I'm meeting the right people. And I can put in a couple of magic numbers here. With typically when we're talking about product marketing, we say that you need to have 7 touches before people even acknowledge or recognize your advert.
mm.
7.
That's
So
crazy.
like, yeah, so like, and So you kind of go, oh, well, I've done a social media post or I put out an ad. They won't even, I'm not talking about buying, they won't recognize you, or even your ad won't even be visible to them until they've seen it 7 times. So this is why marketers often blanket spaces. So you'll have multiple online ads, you'll have pre-rolls, you might have physical billboards, and
exactly.
people today go, why do you need a physical billboard? Why do we need to sponsor events? Because you're building up your number.
Correct.
And what you're doing, I read a book that I found absolutely fascinating called The Like Switch, which was written by he headed up a unit in the FBI that had to convince people to do stuff that basically they didn't want to do, like admit to crimes, spy on their own company or country, and obviously they're not allowed to torture people, so they needed to find other ways to be persuasive. And they actually found that the most persuasive thing to do was what they called the friendship formula, which is another perfect, it's like the 4Ps. And for me, it's another perfect formula for marketing success. So it's called proximity, duration. We've the acronym that we're using is DRIP: duration, repetition, intensity, and proximity. So duration, this is something in the brain that they call the like switch, because apparently it just flips on. So duration, being around for a long time really helps. Or if you can't be around for a long time, then get a lot of attention, like hold people's space, like podcasts, that kind of thing builds trust because they're spending like an hour with you. So duration, but that's why great brands are great brands. Once you can't put a monetary value on 10 years in the game kind of thing, in terms of that level of exposure. So duration, repetition, frequency, get it up. Intensity, it's got to be emotional, it's got to resonate with people, they've got to, it's got to be like good design, surprising, or relevant or new or fresh. And then proximity, it's got to be, we would say that that's convenience, it's got to be accessible, it's got to be in my space. So all of those become good metrics. Like for proximity, geographically, are you reaching people? This is why I love, even in super high-tech spaces, sponsoring local events and that kind of thing. It's an easy way to hack that early proximity, because if you don't get traction somewhere, you're not going to get traction anywhere. And so you really have to start somewhere. So I think that's it. And obviously for higher value products, that's repetition number. Let me use that as my key, because you asked what a key is, and there's a gazillion, but I'll use repetition as mine. For B2B and those kind of products, you sometimes have to have something like upwards of like 100 touches. You're selling something like a car. Anyone that's purchased a car will know how many ads you have to see before you.
No, 100%. So in a past life, I actually worked for a property company in Vietnam. We'll save that story for another day. But the guy, my boss at the time, he gave me a book, and it was Kelly something. It's The Millionaire Real Estate Agent or something like that, I think it's called. And the first half of that book is just around marketing. And it's about, so if I had to ask you right now, Dave, if I say, name one real estate agent company, name one quickly.
Duarte Properties, my cousins.
Oh, snap. Okay. That missed my...
They're excellent in Bloomberg, by the
way. But anyways, like the whole key of a real estate agent is to get in front of you as many times as possible. That's why they got billboards. They give you calendars. They do this, they do that, because they're trying to get, it's just about imprinting that image on your brain.
And it's top of mind. So I worked on Coca-Cola for a while when I worked with a big ad agency group. And what surprised me is when people get into marketing, and this is myself included, you think it's all about passionate people have to be passionate about your product. And what Coca-Cola's realized is, you don't sell Coca-Cola to passionate people. You sell Coca-Cola to people that don't give a crap about cool drinks, who basically are sitting at a restaurant with their friends, and the waiter comes or whatever, and they'll go, have a drink. And it's just like, what's the first thing top of mind? Because they don't want to think about it. It's just cool drink, Coke. And so it's actually just getting to the threshold of being the default or the first to be top of mind. And I was a professional speaker for a while, and I found this. It's whenever I wanted to increase my bookings, I just increased my frequency on social media. And it is absolutely predictable, because I knew, and I had to trust that there were HR committees or whatever, people organizing conferences all the time. And there's tons of speakers that are probably way better than me. But if they've seen three things on my topic that I'm talking about, then I'm going to be the first that's top of mind, and they're going to go, why
Yeah.
not consider Dave?
I love it.
It was just,
It's so
you've got
true.
to be relevant, frequent.
So this conversation is such a great pivot into what I wanted to talk about next, which is kind of looking at marketing for startups, right? So the old traditional, you spoke about price, promotion, and all of that kind of thing, but marketing has definitely changed in the last couple of years. You can't deny it with the rise of social media, and I mean everyone is social media management, social media manager, but like for startups that are trying to figure out this game, because again, talking Gary Vaynerchuk, it's like just post every day. There's so much noise. Going to what we were just talking about, how do you become front and center when there is just so much noise? So like, what advice can we give to startups that need to start creating some sort of visual visibility within the market, within social media and all of that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that one really useful piece of advice is do things that don't scale. Because you've got a bunch in the startup space, you've got a bunch of growth hackers that are doing the same thing as everyone else, following all the formulas, and you can do everything you're right and work your butt off, and the consumer impression will be distrust because it looks too automated, it looks robotic. And things that don't scale, at least initially, will help you get traction because hopefully you've got a good product, but good product plus things that don't scale equals trust in the early days. So famously, the reference a South African example, like HWYBI Chef did handwritten notes in the beginning, but it doesn't have to be that. It can just be like a high attention to detail in terms of your graphic design and putting in subtle nuances in your layouts that just show that you are paying attention to detail, like doing non-standard things, taking the care to craft excellent welcome emails or welcome WhatsApp. Text is another thing, by the way. I mean, like, sheesh, if you can create better experiences using a chat-based interface, that's obviously a major trend globally. One other thing, I mean, so I'm just being like I'm going to be Captain Obvious here, but video is like, there's one thing you want to master, it's that, and then use the tools that are available. Canva is such a great tool, just to get going on into like online graphic design, templated approaches, combined with that ability to craft a story that has traction. But lastly, in terms, just to slow this down for people, in the startup space, we are assaulted with what's new, and it can be quite sweaty. It's constantly keeping up to the point where I've met many startup founders that are in a perpetual state of panic. And one of the things that I learned for my own coping that's actually been really helpful to me and others is to see any whether it's a product innovation or marketing innovation or trend in terms of three levels that are always true and always in operation at any time. And it's truths, trends, and trifles. So the truths never change. So in marketing, it's all about relationships. You have to present yourself well, so people eat with their eyes first. Packaging matters. All of those things. You've got to have a good story that was true 100 years ago. It'll be true in 100 years' time. So those things never change. So first of all, master the fundamentals. And the fundamentals these days are, good website, strong product video, excellent product description, snappy copywriting. Just start with the basics before you get too fancy. Trends, then we start talking about, vertical video, influencers and product advocates, referral marketing, all of that. Predictable trends. They didn't just pop up this year. They've been happening. So if we and lastly, then trifles is have a little bit of space just for play, doing stuff that may absolutely not work, that's completely silly, that's fun for you. It might be anything from like a little startup event that you want to do, or you want to start a chat group related to it, or I don't know, you're into like some weird activity that you want to link to or sponsor. I don't know, have fun with a little bit of it, and that's trifles. And that could be like, we want to experiment with using completely AI driven character creation with our stuff, and we don't know if it'll work. And I definitely would say don't bet the whole ship there, because I think that people pick up when things are completely AI driven, as an example. And I would say that you've got to find your kind of tolerance mix between truth, trends, and titles, but you base your strategy on the truths, get the fundamentals right, and then you take it from there.
Yeah, first principles. Because why it's so important is, especially for an early startup that's gotten a bit of funding, when they've got investors that are peering into them and saying, okay, cool, we've given you this money, where's the conversions, right? And then they start panicking and they want to get salespeople and they just want to start building. And I mean, it's like, talking about storytelling, they kind of lose focus on what they're doing and they just like stress about getting those numbers across the table. And
you
dangerous
know
space.
how much money is wasted. Bobby, another thing, people who, like a lot of the people that end up raising a lot of money, then most of them aren't marketers. Some of them are. I think the people that tend to succeed have both the ability to raise funding, which means you're organized, you can pitch well, you can put together good costing and work plan, all of that, good spreadsheet, all the things. The ones that are also good marketers, the ones that crack it. But in my experience, not a lot of founders have a ton of confidence in their own ability to create a solid marketing organization, and they are susceptible to marketing bullshit. And I just want to say, like, just because someone has got the title marketer doesn't actually mean that they know how to sell in your category, or just because they've been successful somewhere else. Because for example, some products sell extremely well. Let's just take two forms of adverts. Some products are Instagram products and other products are Google Ads products. You've got to be able to distinguish between the two. And if your marketer can't break down their theory of impacts, in other words, explain why each element in the marketing plan makes sense, if you can't make sense of that, in other words, we're buying Google Ads, and these are the list of Google Ads because we've seen from the data that people are searching for this X number of times a month. And if we secure that, we believe we're going to get 13 more sales. And by the way, you can do attribution like that. You can kind of, what you do typically is typically, as you scale the marketing organization, no one channel delivers all of your sales. So we know kind of like this channel delivers like 100 sales a month. This channel delivers 12 extra a month. This one delivers 10,000 a month, whatever. Then you scale and focus over time. But what you do as you build is you basically pioneer and reinvest in one marketing experiment / process / campaign over time. And mature marketing organizations are a collection of those campaigns.
And again, just really touching on it again, I think we've spoken about online and offline already, but why it's so important to have your product team so close with your marketing team, so close with your support team, so close with the CEO, because you're all talking to the same people. You should be looking at the same data and understanding what is happening in the market, because I've seen it so often where the startups again, they stress about sales, they stress about marketing, and they talk to the product team in a completely separate room in a separate narrative without linking, like saying,
I can't tell you how frustrating this is. Like as a marketer, and the clients that are stuck where we go, if we just integrate this into the product, you will save like 80% of your budget. This we'll get a whack of sales if we can just do this and integrate into the product, but it's like a separate swim lane or whatever, and and you can't break through.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's the same with the product team. Like they're communicating this vital feature. It's really frustrating. And I think that is the CEO's job to coordinate, at least have representatives that are talking, like 100%. One marketer in the product team and one product person in the marketing conversation.
If you work with me, I'll bring you closer more than just one representative, because that one representative can become the gatekeeper of information according to their narrative. And that's why it's about being more inclusive, of having more than one person in the room, because from each department, that's my take on it, because it could easily fall between the cracks because someone doesn't like someone. Maybe it's just my corporate scarring, I don't know, but
but on the other hand, some startups are like 3 people, but I would say that this is, even if you're a solopreneur, you've got to also make sure that you're not just wearing the marketing hat or just the product hat, and try and do both at the same time from time to time. Kind of go, how can I think about this differently? Anyway.
Yeah, no, listen, this is fantastic. So the last segment, the last thing I want to kind of touch on is building communities. Now, part of what I wanted to touch on, obviously, in the second segment was around, the ever-evolving marketing landscape. When TikTok came on, all of a sudden you had shorts, you had reels, and everyone was kind of jumping on that bandwagon, right? So it's very difficult to navigate. But something that existed before COVID but I feel, and remote work, something that I feel is undervalued at the moment, because there's still a large percentage of people that are working remote, is forgetting what it's like to sit at a table or sit at an event with people that you know, or
Yep.
like-minded people, let's say. And communities, I think, are busy making a big comeback, and it's such an
Yeah.
important strategy for startups, corporates, you name it. It's like, get
Yeah.
people in a room again. So I know that's one of your strong fortes. What's your view on building communities, and why is it so important?
Man, look, we did the same as everyone else, and we pivoted to like fully online communities over COVID. And wow, it worked, really worked for a couple of years, super well. But one of the timeless truths around people is that
Are social.
you know, the three-dimensional, multi-sensory experience of being with each other in space and time builds trust
Mm,
second to none.
yeah.
And there's, it's quite difficult to explain the extent to which that makes a difference, but I would far rather do an event around a product that has 20 or 30 people physically present than the same event with two
Mm,
or 300 people online. Like,
wow.
it's 10 times more valuable, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Yeah.
to get together in person. And I would extend that to things like trade shows, which I think are really undervalued. But there's an art to doing these things.
Mm, mm.
But yeah, gathering in person, I think it is underrated. It's also coming back in a big way.
I think so too.
I have a couple of Gen Zers in my team, mentor some Gen Zers, and teach at some local varsities. And this is like what we're
Mm,
getting strongly. It's, you know, people 20 and under live in a world where there is like digital is not a thing. It's just reality. And it's as much
mm.
reality as,
Yeah, it's crazy.
um, you know, walking to the shops or enjoying the sunshine. So if it's completely integrated, you're going to choose the more rewarding interface. So where possible,
Mm,
you know, fully embodied experiences definitely will have a premium. And I think that what's going to happen is like we're going to naturally find the spaces where digital works really well. For example, like podcasts, I think are a total winner, and I think that audio is just going to continue growing in influence and
mm-hmm.
attention space. And I think that, yeah, I think like online conferences, an example, online community building. I haven't had a great experience in the last year or so. I
Really,
just don't
yeah.
know where that's going yet. Yeah. So building, and I think also there was also a while where everyone wanted to build their own online communities, like
Yeah,
in other
see,
words,
that was,
their own little mini
I blame
ecosystems.
crypto. I blame crypto. I blame
Yeah.
NFTs.
Telegram groups. Jeez, well, how's your WhatsApp doing? Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I blame
Yeah,
them.
and I think that we're getting more aggregators now, where it's kind of like there's more general purpose communities,
Mm,
people that are dedicated to excellence. And then I think that the way in there for startups is
mm.
essentially sponsor,
Yeah,
participate, add
yeah, yeah.
value, and you'll.
So it's not that you don't do digital communities. It's just like there's that value in real life, right?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Do you need to take a hybrid
Yeah,
approach? And
yeah,
some,
you have to have a hybrid approach. You have to, like, look, you don't have to have a hybrid approach, but if you fully in either, I think that it's a disadvantage.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna have to edit this. I had a question and it's gone. um,
Leave it in, it's raw.
yeah, this is it. No, I was just thinking, because I remember somebody asked me, I was consulting, and they said, should I start a community yet or not? And I don't think they had their product yet. And I was like, it's really good to start a community. So when is it ready? When is it ready? A
Yeah.
good time to start a
Well,
community,
uh,
because
look, a community. All right. So sorry. So let me chat about like the value of building a community around an organization, startup, that kind of thing. So, you can't build a company without a community, because your community naturally, it starts with you and your collaborators, your suppliers, your clients, your buyers, and people long term that are successful optimize every single relationship, and they take care of them. So the community essentially exists in your email inbox, in WhatsApp, in your
mm,
personal CRM or contact list, and the masters learn how to add good metadata to that. So, I would use a CRM or something so that you can filter and sort that community, and that starts extending towards your customer community. And in the beginning, your first 100 users are absolutely golden. You want to, really nurture them. Your product's going to be a bit rough and raw in the beginning. You want to get in touch with them. You want them to feel like they've got a personal relationship because they're going to be so much more forgiving. So you cannot build without community. And once you understand that, it becomes your investor community. You realize what Reid Hoffman said, everyone thinks they're looking for an opportunity. They're actually looking for a person. So if you're looking for breakthrough and funding, it's who's the investor, for example, that I need to bring into my community. Who do I know in my community that can make the introduction? You become a relationship person. And everything just operates faster at the speed of trust. So you're going to have a community. You don't need to start one. Communities typically the best communities aren't around products, they're around categories. So and we build a lot of category startups. So for example, category community. So for example, we have a client around continuous glucose monitoring devices. So these little things that you pop on your arm that give you a real-time perspective of what's happening in your body.
Okay.
But the category isn't established. So we started a community that essentially advocates and talks about what to do with this data, and all of the companies that are making this category of product have collaborated and chipped into the community, and we've been able to grow demand by 5x across the board. So categories of products are better than I think for most products, the kind of people that are going to join up on a product community are probably a little bit weird in terms of consumers. They're probably not your mainstream. So yeah, that was what I'd recommend. I'd start with a community that you are naturally building and acknowledge it as a community, participate, flourish. See the simple things that we know about community building, like what are people's special occasions and dates, see them, involve them. The big thing about community is that you don't have to pay people for their contribution. So even with your employees, like there's a difference between being a transactional relationship with your company, you're working for me because you earn a paycheck, versus a respectful context where you're an employee, but you're also part of this broader community. And so you get to benefit from the broader ecosystem, as well as we can ask and generate favors within that. And so you get this natural sense of flourishing that isn't exploitative, but which is participative. And once again, one of these truths, human societies have always flourished and been built around community participation. It's fundamental, and it just feels good, and you're less likely to burn out if you see your work as doing that.
No, because it is a lot of work, but I think a big word that has come out of what you mentioned now is participation, and that's a big thing people need to understand, whether it's in real life or whether it's online, is get people participating or figuring out how to get them involved. Make sure they understand they're part of that. It's so important in my experience.
Mega. And I've actually got something that I just remembered now that actually ties into where we started around customer interviews. Around
loops, I love them. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's do it. So it's called the Benjamin Franklin effect, or Benjamin Franklin principle. Have you heard about it?
I've heard this before. Carry on.
Yeah, it's mega. This is one of these things that, it's mega. Like everyone should know it in the startup space, I think. So the Benjamin Franklin principle is that people like you more when you've asked them to do a favor for you, not less. So the assumption, especially with introverts, is that if you ask for favors, it's like withdrawing from an account. Like, why would a stranger do me a favor if I've done nothing for them? And worse than that, they'll probably hate me for it also. But the Benjamin Franklin effect says that basically it's a form of confirmation bias. So once someone does something for you, their brain needs to justify it. And so it comes up with a narrative that I've done a favor, so they must be the kind of person that's worth doing favors for. And so the relationship grows. It's based on a story where Benjamin Franklin asked his worst enemy if he could borrow a book that he had. And his enemy lent him the book, and it actually became the start of a trusting relationship. And so one of the best ways to build bridges is to ask for small favors. Now, I do want to caveat this. If you're the guy that's always asking favors and not giving favors, then it does get to a point where it is exploitative, and people are going to pick up on that. But, for most of us, that's not the issue. It's just, especially when you're starting up, it's freaking hard. And just asking people to do stuff for you it's a form of vulnerability, because you do risk rejection. You're putting yourself out there, and you might get rejection, but then, that's on them. And then you get to be like, screw those guys,
Yeah, but
or not,
rejection also
but
makes you grow stronger, so it's fine.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, Benjamin Franklin principle. It's the best thing for growing communities. Awesome.
Brilliant. So we need to finish up. Dave, this has been a fantastic conversation, so much gold in it. But as always, we need to finish with our lightning round, which is some quick fire questions, which you haven't obviously heard yet. And you just need to give your first answer that comes to the top of your head.
Like, is it like one word? Is it a sentence?
You tell me. Let's see how it goes, but I will like make sure we move on to the next one as quickly as possible. So the first one, you've already used one, which was Like Switch. But what book do you most recommend startup founders or marketers to read? 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh man, the first book that came to mind was Deep Fitness. This book changed because you've got to take care of your body while you're building a startup. Like I think a lot of people do this. Yeah, it's just sorry to go completely left field.
No, but that's great.
Yeah, it's just like just do something for your body alongside of it. It teaches you to have boundaries. I think that working 18-hour days, cutting down on sleep, it can work in short dashes, but it certainly isn't going to be helpful in the long run. You need to optimize your creativity,
And it's so easy to forget that when you're just hustling and trying to, make that sale or whatever it is. So I think that's great. So then next question, best advice you've received in your career from a mentor?
There's so much. The first bit of advice that I got was when I was waitering at a restaurant, and there was a super wealthy guy that used to come in all the time, and I asked him this exact question: what's the one bit of advice? And I thought he would snap something off, and he said, give me a moment with it. And he left and he didn't give me advice. The next day he came back and I thought he'd forgotten. And then like a week later, he was like, I've got your advice. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
What is this? It's gonna be gold. And he was like, if someone passes you an opportunity, it's like a ball. Don't drop it. And I was like, what the hell? That is so simple.
Yeah.
But basically he was saying like, he was like basically recognize an opportunity for what it is. Like if you do recognize it, and if it is, prioritize. Don't fritter your energy away on rubbish. Like run with the opportunities and go with it. I don't know if that's the best, but
but that's pretty good. I feel like you gave two. I feel like you gave 2 in 1 there, which is fantastic. One word answer on this one. Which big tech will win the AI battle?
Right.
Which big tech company? Microsoft. You're going for
complete flyer. I haven't been analyzing it, but
that's fine
so far. Yeah.
Give me one word to describe digital marketing in the future.
Story making.
Nice. And then the last one, if you had a billboard, what would you put on it? Your own billboard, what would you write on it?
Dude, these are such good questions for like, this is like, as a marketer, you're asking me to do copywriting here. I know what I want to communicate.
Yeah.
You know what the copy is going to be, because I need to make this snappy. But I want to tell people, meditate twice a day for 20 minutes in complete silence. You don't need an app.
Twice a day?
Yeah, twice a day, 20 minutes. It'll change. Once a day for maintenance, twice a day for transformation. I started doing this in 2020. It has enhanced. There is not a single area in my life that it hasn't enhanced.
Really?
Everything. Yeah. So I want to communicate that. It's one of these things that's like, I would put the thing on a billboard that is just a good. I don't see any downside to this. But I need better copy around that.
I can see the picture. Meditate twice a day.
Yeah. 20 by 2. Yeah.
Dave, this has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed the energy and the conversation. Like I said, it was really, really worthwhile. I hope everyone enjoyed it too. And thank you for joining. And we'll be paying attention to your journey. And where can people find you to finish off?
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Yeah, my company is called Tree Shake. So check me out there. And Dave Duarte, I'm intending to get going with sharing thought leadership on story making this year. So let's see if I get some followers, it'll put pressure.
Well, this is a good start. Telling a story in a podcast.
Thanks, brother.
First
also, I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing. So the newsletter and the podcast. So
Thank you so much. All right, Dave. Thank you very much.